Okay, so in Temp Shell Part 1, we went over the background of it, why Nobel Temp Shell is a great idea to do for your implant temporization, and sort of a quick overview of the entire workflow. In Temp Shell Part 2, we want to really dive into the details because we know that's where both your success will come from, is mastering these details and understanding every step along the way. And we're also going to I'll share a couple of areas where we did things a certain way and we've learned from those sort of early mistakes, and rather than you having to go through those, we'll help you through that. All right, so here we go, and what we're doing here is a very detailed case review. We want to go through every single step so you see everything along the way. So here's a case that we did. Obviously the patient's missing number 9, and we love that great mustache. That's a great margin hider, but in this case, this guy was, even though you wouldn't necessarily think it, was very aesthetically conscious. So we have the lips at rest, full smile. Now this person had the tooth out previously and had a graft placed. There wasn't any buccal bone, so we really needed to kind of rebuild things before we went ahead with the second step. And so he's ready here now to get his implant placed. And really, as you can tell, the tissue isn't ideal, so the last thing we want to do is suture that over a cover screw and have that tissue and papillae not be supported and sag even more. So it's absolutely essential here to try and use the temp shell here to support that papilla and the buccal tissue as we go along. So in the surgery, again, this is fully guided. Everything that we do in the aesthetic zone is fully guided. And you can tell just by looking at it, and they cut these windows for that, you know you've got that guide seated. You can see it touching those adjacent teeth. Everything's where we need to. And this is just what's in there now is a tissue punch. Because he had good thickness of buccal tissue and the papilla, and the last thing we wanted to do was have any sort of a flap that would cut into the papilla or any verticals at all. So we wanted to leave. We know this was a slightly compromised case, so the last thing we wanted to do was create any more issues. So we used a tissue punch here, and again, here's our implant going in, fully guided, fully through the guide on the way in, and so we know what we have. And we had a good 45 Newton centimeters of insertion torque, so we knew we were okay. And as you look, you can see we've got a good 2 millimeters plus thickness of buccal tissue, which you need, and you can tell just by looking at the top of the implant that we're angled very nicely towards the palatal. So ideal placement, great initial stability, and good tissue. And again, no worries about cutting into papillae or any vertical releasing incisions. So what's the first thing we do? As you saw from the first video, we place the temp shell snap temp. Okay, and it's axially loaded. In other words, so you don't twist it in any way. You'll just find that spot, and it very gently just slides in. You get a great tactile sense back, so you know you've got it right. All right, at that point, take an X-ray to confirm that it's down all the way, and the first thing you're going to do is do the initial try-in of the temp shell. And you'll probably will need to alter the height of the temporary abutment. Hey, we'd all rather it be a little bit too long. We can always adjust it down versus too short, and we can't make that temporary snap abutment any longer. So you almost always are going to do some adjustment on it. Okay. So when you try this in, what you want to make sure is it's not jamming into the tissue at the free gingival margin, and it also perfectly indexes. It's perfectly seated. Okay. So if you're talking to the labs that you're having make that, they'll sometimes extend this over onto the buccal. Tell them not to do that, because you want to be able to see, just like we saw that the guide was fully seated when we could see it all the way in an open fashion against the incisal edges of the adjacent teeth. We want to make sure that this thing is indexed perfectly and it seats exactly as you planned it. So you want to check the fit. You want to make sure there's no adverse pressures on the tissue, and you check your margins again with on the adjacent teeth. So once that's good, again, there's our temp shell snap abutment, and it's really right in exactly where we want it. And so again, we've tried that in, we've got that ready, we make any adjustments that we need to, and as you can tell, it's shorter now. We've made that adjustment because it was hitting that temp shell. And so we go ahead, we recheck it, make sure everything is fine. So once you're fine with that, what we learned is you got to put some, even though you're just going to be drilling through it later, you should put some Teflon tape into the hole on the opening of the temporary snap abutment. Because you don't want acrylic from the pickup to go down that tube. It makes it a lot harder to clean out later. So a little bit of Teflon tape is going to be your friend and make things a lot easier. So you try this in, you double check everything, you know you're right. And then the next thing is you're going to, again, confirm with the x-ray, make sure you've done that. You're going to take some universal flowable. This is from Densify Sirona. That worked fine. The stuff we've been using the most is from Voco because they have that dual etch situation where you can put the primer on both the snap abutment and also on the inside of the temp shell. As you can see here where that's going. You don't need to fill the entire shell, okay? Because you just have too much going over and down along the implant. So fill it a little bit short, and then of course place that back in the mouth. You know you've indexed it on the adjacent teeth. Get it set. And then as you can see here, you know it's set, you've got it indexed beautifully, so you know it's down all the way, and go ahead and light cure. And as you know, that's going to cure that composite onto the snap abutment, and then the whole thing, because again, it's not screwed in, it's just snapped in, is going to come right out. So once that's out, you can see that, the sort of the rough margins, and the wings are still there, and you can see the margin on the snap abutment. And those are all things you're going to now fill in, okay? So you place that in flowable on that intaglio, and you start to develop that nice sort of cone-shaped emergence profile that you know is going to support that tissue. And again, you can gently place it back in and out to check how much, you don't want to overdo it. You want to just have good pressure on the tissue, but not too much. You don't really want to blanch the tissue on the papillae just yet. You just want to support them. So now you can tell, so I've added some extra, we're going to polish that down, I've got my margin closed right there, and so again, I'm just doing more work, and this is the holder that in the Nobel kit will hold, and it snaps onto the snap abutment, so you got something to hold it rather than just having something in your hands. It makes it a little bit easier. Again, they've tried to think of every little detail to make this whole process easier. So once you've got the initial polish, and again, here is, and this is one of the very fine football diamonds that's available in Nobel Temp Shell kit, which you can buy from on the website at digitaldentalsurgery.com. We're just trying to get, like I said, an initial polish and develop that emergence profile. Now, again, in that Nobel Temp Shell kit, you're also going to get, again, with the holder, you're also going to get a very long drill because, again, we're going to do this as screw retained. So you've designed it that way. We're going to do the screw retained from moment one. So this is a very long burr, okay? You're going to use a slow speed handpiece, latch grip, all right? But you want one of yours that has good torque because this has got to go all the way through the whole crown and come out. All right, so but as you can imagine, you've got this long drill and you're holding this in your hand. Be careful. Just take your time. And you'll see how it comes through at the top, and you know you've got it all the way through, and that's great. So once you get that through, bring it through a couple of times, and then the other thing that I like to do is just take a little chlorhexidine, sort of use an irrigating syringe and inject it through to really get that all clean. You can look at it yourself and make sure you got that initial clean done, because otherwise you're just going to be picking up stuff on your burrs. Now, the screwdriver that you're going to use and the head of the screw are much larger than that long drill that we just used to drill that initial central hole. So you've got to create more room. And again, this is a coarse diamond from the Temp Shell burr kit available on the website. And we're going to do the initial opening of that incisal edge area for, again, to get that screw access in for the end. And you got to go all the way down to that snap abutment. It just takes time. Not long, but it just takes time, and you just got to get it done right. And again, once you get that open a little bit, you want to go ahead and make sure that not only do you have it open like this, but again, we also have a larger football coarse diamond, because you really got to get this open to get that the screwdriver down in there with the head of the screw. So take your time. If you're not sure, you can try in that screwdriver a couple of times, bring the screw in, just make sure you have it. It takes just a couple minutes to do. Once you get to that first one, you have a better idea of just how much room you need. But again, we've tried to include all the burrs you would need for this in the Temp Shell kit. So finally, again, check with the screw. It's an extra long screwdriver, and that also comes in the Nobel Temp Shell kit. You need that extra long screwdriver to get all the way through to the implant, all the way through from the inside of the ledge. So great, there's our screw going in, and this gives you an idea. When you see the head of that screw, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's much larger, and that's going to fit snugly, but you've got to have enough room for that to go passively all the way down and screw in at the end. Great, so now you're going to do the final try. You can see we've got that opened up all the way, and now we've got this indexing is back exactly where it was, so you know you have it perfectly placed. You don't have to keep taking x-rays, you know you have it down. There's a tiny bit of blanching on the buckle, not too much. Would I reduce that a little bit? Yeah, in the final polish I would a little bit, okay? But you don't want to take away too much, all right? So you want good contact, just not overly blanched. So you and then I like to, because you have to stabilize still with the wings on it, I like to start doing that occlusion check now, because then you won't hit that implant too hard. As you can imagine, if that's a little bit out, you hit it hard, you're going to put torque on that implant. So you do that initial occlusion check, start grinding things down and getting things ready. There's not a lot to do because you've digitally planned this up front. So there's minor things. Again, so put your final polish, cut your wings off, okay? And check and make sure you can double check that occlusion again. I rinse everything in chlorhexidine, and again, I also make sure that I, again, irrigate down the screw access hole with chlorhexidine again before that final. So once you've got your final polish, everything's done, everything's beautiful, the way you want, okay? Again, you get those wings out. You're going to fill that access hole with some Teflon tape. Once you've screwed that in, and again, you screw it in one time, hand tightening only. Whether there's debate about, as you know, with a hand tightening, you can get about 15 Newton centimeters. You could torque it to 20 if you really felt that way, okay? But it's one time. Because where we've had problems are people going back and say, I think I got it, let me try it again. I think I got it, and then next thing you know, things are loose. So one time only, get that screw tight, 15 is hand. We've had no loosenings with hand tightening at all. All right, so we're not taking them to 20 Newton centimeters, although you certainly could. Get it the way you want, fill that access hole, again, with Teflon tape and flowable, polish that up, and you can tell we've left that inside the ledge short. Again, we don't want any occlusal contact with the temp shell. But again, look, as we showed in that previous, a totally different case, look how well that the papilla is supported and stimulated, and the buccal tissue looks great as well. So, another successful case. The patient was thrilled. The GP was thrilled. If you have any other questions, again, email us at email us at easthudsondocs@gmail.com, or go to our website, www.digitaldentalsurgery.com, and that's where you can also look for other courses that we're giving. Buy the Temp Shell Burr Kit, and please like and share our YouTube channel as well. Thanks.